Alright everyone, it's time to talk a little bit more about the impeachment farce, and that really is what it's about. It's a farce and it's a political floor show because not a single Democrat actually believes they're going to get 60 votes to retroactively impeach a private citizen. It would be disastrous if they did because it would force the hand of SCOTUS to actually clarify that no, the Senate indeed can't do that. You have to do that while the person is actually holding that office. It's pretty cut and dry. It's pretty clear. Nonetheless, the Dems in the Senate want unilateral and oligarchic power to be able to basically fuck with any citizen. I'm assuming this is for political purposes, by the way. That being said, it was really funny, link in the description to see the Democrats respond to the 10-plus minute reel of that was provided by Trump's defense attorneys, of Democrats fundamentally saying the same things he said that supposedly caused an insurrection. It was really funny. I did catch that. It kind of dragged on a little bit and became boring after a while because most Democrats have said fundamentally similar things. The idea of telling people to fight for what they believe in is not a call to arms. It is not a call to insurrection. It's not legally actionable. It never will be. First and foremost, though, before we jump into a little bit more, because it is funny, there will be a pinned comment if you're watching on YouTube to 4 other video hosting sites that do not, I repeat, do not denigrate their user base like YouTube does. I'm heavily algorithmically throttled at the moment. When you go from an average of 90 to 100,000 views on every new video to 40 to 50,000, and it's not replicated on any other site that you're using, it's not your fault. And this is something that I'm seeing from literally dozens of other creators just that I'm talking to. So you can check those out at your leisure. I will be making generally alt-tech exclusives as well in the near future. So if you want all the Styx Hexendom, you're going to have to get it on some other site eventually. Democrats, though, their reaction to the reel, their main reaction was to cry racism and sexism. Well, I notice, link in the description, I notice that a lot of these people that are being called out for telling people to fight for what they believe in are people of color and women. So in other words, they don't have a rebuttal. Because the whole idea is that Trump whipped people into a frenzy, which, you know, was cut to pieces by his defense attorneys with their statements, showing that much of what the Democrats put forth as being an incitement was out of context. Only out of context, and this has been the case with so many things Trump has fucking said in his life. If you edit them out of context and present them like a wall of propaganda, which the MSM and Democrats have done for the last 4 years, you can make it seem that Trump has said something that's totally different from what he actually said. This is the case for Charlottesville, which was actually put in here as well, where he explicitly disavowed white supremacists and neo-Nazis. The protesters that he was praising in Charlottesville, this is objective, it is observable, and anyone with 2 minutes of their time can prove this to themselves by watching the entire clip in its full context. Explicitly were liberal protesters and people who just showed up because they didn't want statues removed. He explicitly denounced BLM Antifa on one hand, and also the neo-Nazis that showed up on the other. This is explicit. It's not up for debate. We've got the whole video. People have repeatedly taken a small clip, a small proportion of his Charlottesville reaction statements, well out of context, and edited into oblivion that statement in order to make it look like Trump was praising white supremacy. They have claimed repeatedly that he's never disavowed white supremacy. He's done that more times than probably any other living U.S. politician because he's constantly provoked on the issue. The fact is that you don't need, though, in many cases, to edit what's been said by Democrats. Maxine Waters speaks for herself. You can see her tirade. You can see Democrats calling for their constituents, in some cases, to a form of resistance that goes beyond merely, well, we must resist the evil of white supremacy and Trump populism. It goes well beyond that. We've got those statements. And they put up, I think there were probably 100 different individuals that were part of this enormous reel the Republican defense put up. And it's funny still to me, to this day, that there are a handful of Republicans that have broken rank, and now they've jumped shark, and they feel like the only way to protect their careers is to join the Trump Derangement Syndrome Club. Look, Trump Derangement Syndrome is so 2020, dude. It's the current year. How long are these people, these pissants, going to whine about Donald Trump? Donald Trump is no longer the president of the United States. Honk honk. Now, Beijing Biden is your president. The fact that the economy is still faltering has nothing to do with any of Trump's policies. The fact that still people are dropping dead of COVID has to do with Biden's lack of response. How many people have died since he took office? I would love to see a tabulation of that, by the way. It's got to be a considerable number of people. I guess is Joe Biden, the great-grandma killer. Well, actually, that was Cuomo, just to be clear. So again, link in the description here. You can see it for yourself. It's very, very telling that their only reaction, because it's not a legal proceeding at all, is to cry about bigotry. That's because they know they don't have the votes. This is about crucifying populism through Trump in public opinion. This is about trying to stop the MAGA America First agenda because they are afraid of it. They would not be having this show trial and exposing Trump, by the way, to even more public exposure. They would not be doing this and antagonizing the MAGA hat wearers and trying not to focus on anything Biden's doing. They wouldn't be sucking the wind out of Biden's sails if they weren't afraid. If they were feeling good about things, if the push polls that are being released were true and Biden is at 62% approval, they would say ignore Trump. They would completely block him out. Finally, the media would have a reason, an excuse to not even talk about him at all. Well, he's a former president, he's golfing. Who fucking cares? Let's talk about Biden's socks and his dogs. Let's talk about these push polls that we keep getting, showing him in the post 60% approval range. That's a bucket of shit. I doubt he's that high within the Democratic Party, especially since all the leftists think he's a turd now because he's done a 180 on so many things, on guns, on certain elements of taxation, stimulus relief and stuff. He's getting pounded from the left more than the right now. People on the right now, they're too busy laughing at the farce, which is this impeachment proceedings. It makes absolutely no sense, by the way, I think, to the average American citizen to waste so much time. During a pandemic and a recession, you would rather talk about this. You'd rather talk about insurrection, but there never was an insurrection. If you want something close to an insurrection, look at what was being said and done by Antifa for literally months across various U.S. cities, throwing bombs and literally calling for revolution. The people at the Capitol, by and large, seem to see it as a selfie opportunity. By and large, most of those people were involved in no form of violence whatsoever. That's about all. Peace out.